Okay, so I had one subject that was to do with, these 5 reflections that are given for layperson and monk alike. It's the first 4 are to do with recollecting that I'm subject to aging, not gone beyond aging, subject to illness, not gone beyond illness, subject to death, and that I will be separated from all that's dear to me. But now my question is particularly in regard to the last one, which says, I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, kin to my actions, and my actions are my shelter. And so I recently heard that explained in a way that surprised me a little bit, because it was sort of as a particularly Buddhist reflection on, something that would have to be taken on faith. That, if you do good things will happen to you in the future, and it's kind of an encouragement. And I hadn't seen it in that way. So I was wondering if you could talk about the extent to which this type of reflection, and maybe karma more generally, is something that is directly visible.
Well, yeah, it's definitely much goes deeper than just do good and good will come to you. Especially paired with all the other reflections that are quite direct and acute. Everything that is there will become otherwise, and so on. That's not a type of reflection that the Buddha would just give to a casual layperson, and he would give to a casual layperson, do good and you'll be reborn in heaven. So since this whole thing about karma is paired with such direct instructions of reflection with how to uproot the ownership and so on, means it's on the same level. So, and as the sutta say, basically every action is intention. So anything that comes out of your intention is your karma. So that's why you need to really understand and take on the weight of it, just on the level of intentions. Because see, people think, I'm not doing any bad karma because I'm not killing, I'm not stealing. Yes, that's true by body, but how about speech? How about the mind? And given that now we're talking about the reflections that are directly relevant to the practice, like I'm subject to aging, death, sickness, everything that's there will change. Okay, time is short, I'm running out of time, I better do something about it. In the same sense, karma relates on that same level if it's taken on the level of your intention, the weight of it. So I am the owner of my actions means, okay, so each time I intend, even by thought, to do something unwholesome, I will be the owner of that. That will be the sole reason that I'm still not uprooting the suffering on account of losing what is dear to me, or suffering on account of losing health or life and so on. So that's the it's a very direct, very acute, and very unpleasant reflection. Because when also probably the subtlest, you can even somebody who doesn't want to see, with some effort, you can see the subject being subject to aging, to sickness, to death. You need to sort of dwell on it until it sinks in. But taking on the weight of karma on the level of your intentions and these mental choices that people don't really feel like, it doesn't feel like a big deal. Well, you need to start regarding it as a big deal if you want to be truly free and completely free.
Even that very first one, I am the owner of my actions. I mean, nobody else, owner of what I do, in the sense like I cannot put it on anybody else. There is nothing else that I can sort of blame or kind of
nobody can come in between, nobody can take part of it on. We can always, it's because of this or it's because of that, or yes, some of it is my fault but some of it is their fault. As far as your intentions are concerned and the results of your actions, so as far as samsara is concerned, it's all on you. Whatever you do, it's only on you.
So no matter
There's no
how
excuse.
much sort of oh, it was a very difficult external circumstance.
Yeah,
and
well, like the Buddha said, even if the highway robbers are chopping your limbs, if you have the thoughts of hate, you are the one who hasn't freed yourself. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what choices. Well, it matters for them, not for you. So yeah, it needs to be taken in that absolute, absolute sense.
and that part too, like I am the heir of my actions paired with the others. I was thinking it's actually quite heavy, quite important, as in this situation that I'm currently in, that is a danger, subject to all of these things.
All these liabilities.
That's actually something that is already on me somehow.
Because of the actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because of these actions that I'm not free from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not free from them because I've been avoiding responsibility for them. So in order to free myself first, I need to take on the full weight of, no. It's on me. I'm the owner of my actions. I'm the heir to them. Whatever I do, the results of those actions. So there is nothing. So I really need to take the full responsibility. And that takes even more sinking in than the previous reflections. Because it doesn't feel like it's your fault. It doesn't feel like it's your responsibility. It doesn't feel the weight. It doesn't feel heavy. Like when you have these little thoughts of desire and intentions and delights and so on, it's just these fleeting little things. Most of the time I don't have that, but doesn't matter. You need to take it in a serious sense, whereby, as the Buddha said, yeah, if you're sort of covered in mud and dirt, removing a little bit doesn't mean much because you're all still absolutely covered in filth. But now imagine you're completely clean. You have a pure white cloth, one tiny little stain will stand out, will be a big deal, will be visible from every angle, because everything else is clean. So that's the point. If you have been practicing to the point of, subject to aging, sickness, death, everything is dear to me, if you've been enduring it, dwelling on it, contemplating it, understanding it, then you will realize the weight even of these little fleeting thoughts and intentions that you do welcome, that you do accept, that you do sort of choose to engage with, at least mentally. Sometimes verbally, sometimes maybe physically. But point is, okay, so I am not uprooting the main reason that I am liable to all these things that I've been contemplating beforehand.
By engaging in this, I am maintaining this suffering that I am still subject to.
Yeah.
Because, more generally, karma is often taken as something that sort of, you really just have to take it on faith, and there's no way you can apply it directly to the practice. And
that's because people confuse the understanding with workings of karma. They confuse that with understanding the nature of action. And those are two separate things. But people think that, if I understand how karma works, I thus understood what karma is. And that's not the case. So when the Buddha said, if you try to understand the workings of karma, you would meet only madness or distraction. There is not. But then on many other occasions he said, he understood karma. He understood the nature of action, the root of it, and uprooted it. So those are two different things. If people are not aware of that, they will then sort of approach understanding of the nature of karma through just collecting information about the workings of karma and repercussions of karma and so on. And that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And if you understand the nature of karma, then you realize that the workings of it are totally irrelevant.
Exactly. It doesn't matter which way it works, because you're free from it. The only reason you were concerned with the workings is because you knew you were not free. You were under its pressure, under its control, and it was unpleasant and it was painful.
I think a problem with the idea that it's something that is sort of a thing that is just, maybe you take it on faith, maybe you get the results or not, and not seeing it on that direct level, is that it sort of prevents you from seeing that, like you just said, that...
Well, you won't realize the depth of it.
Yeah.
So it's just going to stay on the surface and fine. And again, the misunderstanding in that way results in kind of, you obviously sooner or later going to think that, you fulfill that requirement. because I do think about my karma, I do good, and good will come to me. So that's what the Buddha meant, full stop. But actually you realize, if you were to then consider, what if it meant even more, and start pushing it for further, and you come to realize it's the weight of your own intentional responsibility behind your intentions and choices by mind, then you realize, so if I actually uproot it on that level, then I have truly sort of freed myself from karma in that sense.
And you can even see how, the situation you're in now, the weight that things have, the way that suffering hits you, is kind of quite directly a result of the way that you have been acting and the things that you have been cultivating.
Not necessarily the immediate result,
no.
but it's certainly, if you keep yourself, just some mundane example, if you keep yourself unfit and unhealthy, you will be more exposed, or rather, even the minimal exposure to elements will be much more painful, much harder to endure, much more overwhelming, much more bothersome, because the mind hasn't been developed. In this sense, the body hasn't been developed. So the work is the same when the mind hasn't been developed, and the mind has not practiced sense restraint in regard to desire, in regard to acting out of ill will. Every little thing will then provoke you. Every little thing will induce passion and pressure and pain, because it proliferates. The more you give into it, the more you allow the wild animal to run free, the wilder it will become.
I can illustrate maybe with an example that occurred for me not that recently, but a few months ago. I was in seclusion at one point, and at one point my mind was just full of, there was thoughts of unwholesome things that I had done, or unwholesome ways I've behaved in the past that I regretted, which was unpleasant. And previously I would have thought that I would have had to try not to have these thoughts, try to stop them. At that point, fortunately enough, I had gained a little bit more wisdom, so I was not sort of trying to stop them, just trying to endure them. But at one point it occurred to me, a sutta that I had read ages ago. It was one of these where the Buddha sees a monk just sitting in the forest or something, and he's and it says this monk was experiencing sharp, piercing feelings on account of his past wrong actions. And I remember at the time when I read that, I had sort of thought of it as some kind of magical feeling,
some physical torture by some spirits or something.
And then I was like, wait a second, here I am feeling unpleasant feelings on account of my past actions, and it said in the sutta he's patiently enduring them. So here, I have to patiently endure them. You can see it on that kind of direct, my mind is kind of the result, accumulation of these past things, and it was quite...
simply see, like, a possibility of regret is another result of your action, of any action. So that's why, the Buddha often talks about blamelessness, and doing the actions, they will not be blameworthy, because if they're blameworthy, sooner or later, if you don't perpetually distract yourself up until the moment you die, the mind will become aware, and the regret and the weight of it will have to come, and it will be unpleasant, and it could have been avoided if you didn't act in the first place. But again, it's like people regard this vipaka, the result of the action, as some sort of, again, mystical retribution that comes later in time. No, vipaka simply means result. So in the same sense, now I say, can you get up and pass me that bottle? Everything that happens as a result of that action will be the result of that action, from my point of view. Getting the bottle of water, maybe you get upset because I asked you something, I didn't ask you nicely. That will be the result, from my point of view, of my action. That is my vipaka, because it resulted. Now, all I can do, I can't control those results, but I can control or make sure that my initial action was not rooted in greed, aversion, I didn't make you do it to humiliate you or because I hate you or something like that. Then it doesn't matter which way it results. I know that the origins of it were not rooted in unwholesome roots, and that's all you can do. And that's all you need to do. Then any vipaka that comes, it's not mine, and it doesn't pertain to me, and it cannot make the mind turn against itself. because again you have ceased to provide that kind of unwholesome connection of lust, aversion, anger, distraction. So that's exactly what vipaka is. You don't need to wait for future rebirths and so on to see the results of what you've been doing. You are the result of what you've been doing. Your habits are the results of what you've been doing. And each time you choose to engage with the results of what you've been doing, that's your new action at that given time.
Yeah.
So it's not determinism. It's not that you can't stop it. Every single time you choose to accept those results of your actions as valid as whatever else and act out of them, that's your current choice. That then perpetuates those results.
Exactly, like that was, at that even time of that kind of little story I was telling is, I really kind of realized, okay, this is the point. This is why now the thing is not to try to get rid of these thoughts or try to kind of do something else on account of them, run away from them. The point is to not feed this same thing that has given me now this pain. And then immediately
And then the mind will say, yeah, but what if this pain lasts, for a long time? Doesn't matter. What if it lasts for a year? Doesn't matter. What if for the rest of my life I don't get a moment of peace on account of this? Fine. Still, I won't act out of it. Because the mind will say that. The mind will make any of such endurances, it will throw the threat of infinity at you. Oh, this will forever now haunt you. Because see, you can't change what you did. What you going to do now? Nothing. I'll endure it for as long as it takes. Even if it takes lifetimes. But you won't. It's an irrational sort of scare tactic, so to speak. And that's what Mara was doing in the suttas. Often would kind of try and present you the worst case scenario. But see, you have to accept it. It's not like, okay, yeah, Mara present me the worst case scenario, but it won't be. It might be. He might be right, and it might be forever. It might be for the rest of your life. That feeling will never change. You're just going to be in perpetual pain. Doesn't matter. Still, you're going to endure it on the same level. Because only by willing to endure it forever, so to speak, on that level, you will get to actually see where the problem really is. And it's not in what you've done. It's not in how long things will last. It's not in what's happening to you. It's in your present attitude of present craving against that discomfort. So that's where the pain is. That's where the problem is. And that's why these things that you seemingly have to endure forever would haunt you and be painful only because you're resisting them here and now.
But you can, or at least for me it was very important to realize, like, I can endure it now because I know that that's what I have to do, like in that sense, and there's no confusion in that.
Exactly, and it doesn't matter how much pressure it kind of brings onto you, but this is what needs to be done. And that in itself, it's quite liberating, just the knowledge of what needs to be done correctly on the right level. Because why that does not provide a sense of relief to people, it's because they don't see what needs to be done. They assume what needs to be done, they act out of a sense of duty what needs to be done and how it needs to be dealt with, but they don't really know and see for themselves what needs to be done. And in this case, nothing, in a sense. Nothing directly needs to be done. You just need to endure on account of things you've already done or you already did. And it's the same whether it comes to sensuality, aversion, any of the hindrances basically, when they try to pressure you and these thoughts revolve you, that's how you deal with them. That's how you go outside of their domain, by not, jumping in and trying to address them and prevent them, manage them, justify them, explain them, rationalize them, psychologize them, and so on.
Yeah, and it is, the same principle for any of the hindrances, like the pressure of
doubt,
sensuality, any of them, on account of how much you've been feeding.
So the pain will be there of that pressure. How much you suffer on account of that pain basically will be determined on how much you don't know what you need to do rightly, and how much you're resisting it. That's how much you're going to suffer. In and of itself does not necessarily mean suffering, even with all the discomfort that might bring onto you. So that would be the true end of Kamma. And that's why it is like the whole surmounting of the hindrances, establishing the mind in the jhana, it's basically surpassing the domain of action and vipaka in that sense. It will, now that depends on every individual, for how long you have to do it. But if you are doing it rightly, it will have to result in complete removal of the slightest traces of ownership in regard to past, future, present, doesn't matter. That's why Buddha said, the one who understands this, he doesn't even think anymore, I am, I will be, and I was in the past, when he remembers. That part of, not that he forgot what he did in the past, or that the memories of the past are gone, but the sense of ownership was always maintained in the present, through that ignorance, through that lack of knowledge, through that lack of clarity, through that constant ignorant engaging with those actions. So now he has uprooted that, which means when he thinks of the past, he's not taking it up as mine. When he has thoughts of future and what's going to happen, what he's going to do, he's not taking that up as mine. But more often than not, that's too subtle for people to discern, so they just tend to default onto dismissing the past and the future and mystifying the present. I heard that countless numbers of times. Our past is no more, future is not yet, it's only the now and stuff like that. You don't even need the Buddha to tell you, but you still have your memories, even if you are perpetually dismissing the past or refraining from thinking about the future. See, that's the future idea. Oh, I shall sustain this idea in the future where I will not think about the future and thus I'll be free from the future. But that's a contradiction in terms again. So whether it's the present, whether it's the past, whether it's the future, they are equally present as past and as future. So, and that's why that's where the problem is. Here and now, are you taking it up as mine? Are you resisting it? Are you dismissing it? Are you afraid of it? Are you affected by any hindrance on account of it? And if the answer is yes, yeah, there you go. Endure it on that level. Don't concern yourself with like rewriting the past or preventing the future. Just keep an eye, keep a watchful eye on the doorway of your actions here and now. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I will not do.
So that way even you don't have to worry about what specific thing I might do in the future, as long as I know what I have to keep.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter what
now.
specific thing is done.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is whether it was rooted in greed, aversion, delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, if there is no greed, aversion, delusion, certain specific things cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not because you are concerned about the specifics, but because you pulled out the roots that they would need to grow from. So that would be the true end of Kamma.
I think that's something probably it's quite hard to understand, because it's like, I think it was Nanavira said it once, intention does not imply craving, which is a very hard thing to understand.
There is no
like
craving without intention,
mm-hmm.
but there is intention without craving.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get to see that, you will be on the way of freeing yourself from craving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because when you start, intention equals, intention is craving. Plus
and that's what I mean. That's why you need to take that full blanket responsibility for it. I am the owner of my actions, my choices, my intentions. Even if, I didn't act out of them, okay, but have I accepted them mentally? Am I delighting in them? Am I resisting them? At least on that mental level. To that extent, you are involved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that whole, learning how to endure things correctly. Enduring on mental level, like you had all these thoughts presenting themselves, trying to trap you, pull you, engage you, get you to lose perspective, basically, and try to deal with them specifically. But you didn't. So you had to endure mind on the level of the mind doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else you could have done by body or by speech that would have addressed it on that level, except try to distract yourself. But that only has a limited success, and sooner or later it will have to run out. And that's exactly what the practice is. And that's why people can spend decades of practicing on the external level, but if they never allow things and take responsibility for them on that mental level, on the level of mental intention, there is no practice. There is just the emulation of practice, but internally there's no proper basis established.
And if you're not doing it like that, that's when I think it's so common, or at least I was thinking like this previously as well, like, okay, I'll just keep going and keep trying. At some point the results of the practice will come. And again, you can only really think like that if you're not fully taking responsibility for the fact that, wait, I'm not free from suffering right now. and everything that I'm doing might be kind of perpetuating that, or
Yeah. So then the kind of, because that's too unpleasant, the practice, the things you do are kept on that external level at the arm's length, which then also results in you expecting the results of your practice to come from that external level. So I have all this mess in my mind, I can't think about it or endure it, just be here now, and Buddha, and present is here, and future is not yet, and so on. And then I'll just do these motions and techniques and whatever else I commit myself to, and then hopefully I'm going to have the experience arising as a result of it, and all these bad things in my mind will be addressed, and I will not be able to suffer anymore, and that's the pure bliss and pure enlightenment. And I'm sure there were teachers in the Buddha's time that would have advocated and advertised that, but the Buddha was quite clear that that's not where the practice is. It's on the level of intention, wholesome, unwholesome, and not losing perspective in regard to it, enduring it on that level, and that's what he called the true tapas, the true kind of ascetic practice of, you can endure the heat, the cold, the pain, the torture, endure things on that level of the thought and intention without welcoming, delighting, or resisting, or trying to get rid, or justify, or psychologize. You are actually purifying your mind, whether you want it or not, because nobody wants to endure it on that level, and at the same time feel responsible for it.
Yeah, which is even worse or harder. And the hard thing too is like when it's about the unwholesome and wholesome intentions, only you can really know
where it was rooted,
when it's wholesome and unwholesome.
Exactly.
And that's another reason that it's quite hard to feel fully responsible for it, because you can't ask somebody else necessarily for was it good or was it bad, or when you can to an extent, but in the beginning, but really ultimately you have to know for yourself. And
so you need to start doing your own digging, because that's not going to just magically reveal itself, because the entire existence is about covering it up. The sensuality, acting out of ill will, distraction, all of that has in common the attitude of covering that very thing up, because it's unpleasant to recognize that it's on you, and you chose one thing, you could have chosen another. Either way, it's on you. So you are fully responsible. Whether you want to interpret that as everything is my fault, or in any other way, either way, responsibility is fully on you. And even if you say, for the sake of argument's sake, if you're practicing, everything is my fault. What's the problem with that thought? Why are you resisting that thought? Why are you afraid of that thought? Are you panicking when you think that? Are you being overwhelmed? Okay, that's your work, cut out for you. So you need to be able to even accept that thought, because point will come when Mara will say that. Everything is your fault. Look what you did. And there was numerous suttas in Thera Therigata when he did exactly that. See, it's because of what you did, or what you wanted to do. But then, if when monks and nuns had wisdom, they could see. It's like, who are you talking about? All there is dukkha coming and dukkha going. I'm not the owner of any of this, because I've purified myself from that gratuitous ownership that was being maintained and perpetuated through greed, aversion, delusion. So now I just have to endure dukkha coming and going until it completely disappears. But it's not going to be like a magical kind of a finger snap clearance, instantaneously freed from all of that. No. So if you're scared of certain thoughts, that's a problem. You being overwhelmed by fear is a problem. If you're if it's impossible for you to remain unmoved by certain other thoughts of sensuality, that's a problem. If it's impossible, for you to not have then thoughts of cruelty, hate, anger when you're annoyed or irritated or offended or insulted, that's a problem. So all of those things that, again, are on the level of the mind, if they move you, if that passion sort of engages you and you cannot withstand it, you cannot endure it, you cannot but give into it, that's a problem. So that's why you shouldn't I mustn't be thinking that. No, you should be able to think whatever you want to think. And the mind should not be able to overwhelm you on account of that. So yes, that doesn't mean you just in one go you think everything at once. But as I said, if such a thought of, as it came up in this example, also that means everything is my fault comes up, Well, maybe. Am I afraid of that? Doesn't matter if the answer is right or wrong. What matters is, am I already trembling under the prospect, what if it is my fault? Yeah, what if it is? Maybe it is. Well, in a way it is. Let's say it like that. So the worst case scenario, whatever it is that moving you? Is that frightening you? If it is, to that extent, you are holding back. To that extent, you are expecting shelter to come from the world to prevent these thoughts and circumstances from arising, and that's not going to happen. Or it's going to happen only for a period of time. Sooner or later it will have to change, and you will be fully exposed without a shelter, without safety.
Yeah, because like when you say, yeah, if you're able to be moved by any of these kind of thoughts, it's a problem, but it's my problem, as in it's my fault.
Yeah.
Even that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the fault. See, not like, oh, what I've done ignorantly and stuff. Yeah, true, that's a relative fault. Every time you acted out of greed or anger and so on, yeah, it's a relative fault. What is the acute here and now fault is you being moved by that and accepting that. And trying to outrun it, trying to get rid of it, and so on. That's the actual living fault.
But it's also not
blemish.
Yeah, and it would be then easy to kind of think, okay, so I should not be moved by this. Yeah, I should try, but you can't. You have to just stop again, like.
Well, again, so you can think that I should not be moved by this. Okay, so where was this decision rooted in now? In the fact that I was moved by it, and the fact that it was unpleasant, and the fact that I don't want that discomfort. Thus, I will now decide to never be moved by it. So fundamentally, you're not really deciding to never be moved by it. You're just deciding to try to outrun the suffering yet again. But see, you're going to be doing that every now and then. But if you do know where to look, such as, the reasons for your actions, whatever those actions and decisions are, you will get to see, okay, yeah, I have had the thought of I shall not be moved by this. But at the same time, I do still have perspective that not being moved means not acting out, including with the thought of I shall not be moved by this. And that's how you cease to be moved. So then that was the right thought. It matched your experience. I shall not be moved, and I haven't been moved. At will, I can be now unmoved, because the craving has been removed.
Needless to say, of course, one will be able to see this correctly after the proper and thorough development of the gradual training that we so often described in many other videos.